So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 29th day of the New Earth Summit, India's first integrative summit on solutions to our problems in health, food, farming, and environment, now in its third year. I'm Sophie Sequeira from the Earth Keepers Goa, your host for this evening, and I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists and to our audience, also on behalf of our summit convener, Darryl D'Souza, and our 10 Earthkeeper groups in India and overseas. We express our gratitude to you for taking time out to be with us this evening and to share your insights and experience so that all watching this live webinar and its recording later may benefit from the holistic science and wisdom being presented on this platform that will help us all co-create a beautiful world. Our topic for today is self-sustained eco-communities of New Earth. I'll start with introducing our panelists for today to the audience. Our first panelist, Chandra Vikash, did his BTech from IIT Kharagpur and MBA from IIM Calcutta. He has worked with Tata Consultancy Services, Arvind Mills, and SAIL in the past, and is the founder of Indian Dynamics, as well as 10 Systems and Services. Chandra Vikash is the convener of Gaia Earth Sansad, which stands for Global Assembly of Indigenous and Autonomous Community States. Its details are at gaiasansad.org. He is an Indigenous researcher and activist who dedicated the last 12 years of his life for the Indigenous ecological, socio-economic, cultural, spiritual, and geopolitical causes, and is now the chief mentor and innovation coach at Gaia Innovation Lab and of the Global Academy for Indigenous Activism. Chandra Vikash has developed the LACE Gaia model, where LACE stands for Localized Abundance and Circular Economy, which he presented through several international and national research papers at the ITS World Congress 2004 in Japan, in 2009 in Sweden, at the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education in Canada in 2017, and the Congress for New Urbanism, Australia 2018. Our second panelist, Darryl D'Souza, who has been teaching people how to reverse chronic illnesses with integrated natural medicine since 16 years after his own suffering of 14 years from chronic illness that almost ended his life in 2004 due to modern medicine failing him. His book, Become Healthy or Extinct, and lectures, videos, seminars, webinars, workshops, and residential retreats on wellness and spirituality are highly sought out. Darryl was the secretary of the World United Doctors and Healers Association for 5 years, during which he curated and convened their continued medico-spiritual education conferences. Darryl is also an industrial engineer, organic farmer, environmentalist, TEDx speaker, founder of New Earthkeepers Connect, ambassador of Vegan Nation, convener of the New Earth Summit, and a speaker at the World Parliaments on Spirituality. For over 22 years, Darryl has been researching soil, animal, plant, and human biology, marine biology, planetary ecology, and holistic living, which has inspired him to do the New Earth Summit as a platform to showcase their integrated and symbiotic functioning. So for the first hour of this webinar, I have a couple of questions for our panelists, which will then be followed by question and answers with our audience at 7 p.m. who can type in their questions in the Q&A box below, even before that time. If you would like to receive the recording of this webinar, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The New Earth Summit. So now for our questions to the panelists. Darryl, could you please share with us your design and function of a self-sustained eco-village?
Thank you so much, Sophie. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to Chandra Vikash ji.
Good evening.
I will start today with a presentation and to explain the very basic design of uh, what I have been talking through the summit of this eco village, eco city, or I'm calling it now a sector. Uh, Many people in India, are especially North India, are very familiar with the word sector. So it is a self-sustained. That means it's functionally complete. You whatever goods and services, experiences that you want on a regular basis are made in the community itself, and so very seldom do you need to go outside the community because it is giving you all the your food, your health, your education, all of that. So uh, now I'm calling that a sector because of the size of the plot that I will talk of. And this can happen in a city. So you can have many sectors in a city and some, cities within a state. So the first, it goes by some very important principles. And here you can see is we're taking a reference of a person walking with ease. Otherwise, the normal speed of a person who's walking will be somewhere in a 6.5 to 7 kilometers per hour. So, uh, why have we taken this? Is because a person can walk the length and breadth of the entire sector within 1 hour. Okay, so it can be the length and the breadth. So we're saying 5 kilometers by 5 kilometers. And the main point is here, if you can get all your needs just in walking distance, then you do not need vehicles in it. Okay, that and why is that? Because the current amount of vehicles that are being produced on the planet, just for the sake of this, getting your daily things, getting your food, going to work, getting your education, all of these vehicles, of course, they take mining to make the metals, then extraction of crude oil to make your plastic, to feed those vehicles with petrol. So this has gone on for so long, and the entire world, Earth is running out of these resources. So that's a very important aspect in this. We are trying to design a space that will give you all you need without taking any more non-renewable resources from the earth. So obviously, a person will not need to walk end to end. When you see the design in the next slide, you will understand that a person may just have to walk 15 minutes. Okay, so because the community will have all of these places within it, marketplace, workplace. Now, those who do not want to walk half an hour, or mainly it is now, why wouldn't you want to walk half an hour? Because your doctor already advises you this every day and says that those people who do not walk for exercise for 15-20 minutes or half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening, you are going to get fat or you're going to get sick and lethargic. So this is going by the basic design of the human body, that it needs movement, it needs blood flow, it needs cerebrospinal flow, lymphatic flow mainly comes from movement of your arms and your hips and your legs and all of that. So this is a model for being healthy every day of your life. So for those people like senior citizens or children who cannot walk, for the senior citizens, you can have a two-seater, or even if you want three-seater geared cycles, what we call the manual auto rickshaw in India. And uh, so even in this community, I say only, it's necessary. But we're trying to make it so comfortable that in walking and your normal day exercise, you'll get everything you need. And here's some calculation. It comes to about 6,177 acres. And we're building a very wonderful natural home, just a ground floor villa with 4 bedrooms. That will, the bedroom, this villa will take about not more than 200 square meters. and it will be on a 400 square meter plot. So you have garden in the front, garden behind, parking space, place for your pets to run around. So very comfortable space, because we also have to understand that human beings can no longer, and it's unhealthy to live like rats in cages that are all touching one another, where your simple argument in your house can be heard by the next door neighbor. So that kind of proximity is a mental disturbance. Uh, so everybody knows who has lived in a villa with land, around them. They get a chance to walk barefoot, to grow their own herbs, their own food, get sunlight. You structure your day with sitting in the garden and having breakfast. Now that is definitely something very beautiful to look forward to. Now, for those 8 people in that house, if you divide 500 by 8, it's just 63 square meters that each person is actually using. And then to that, through calculations of, we have said that to that one person, you add another 473 square meters, which is for their living. How much of water do they need? So a portion of the lake or the river, a portion of the farm that they eat. Maybe it's 300 square meters, or people say 200 square meters itself. You can grow food enough for one person that will, by the seasons, take care of all of their food. So then also community spaces and education. So there's an apportioning done over here. So overall, one person in this area requires just 500 square meters. Now doing the calculation further, in this 25 square kilometers, you can comfortably and artistically, with good aesthetics, house 500,000, 50,000 people. It's very close to an ancient design in India that is there in our, ancient texts. So if you look at every acre, which is about 4,000 square meters, you can host up to 8 people in that place. So I did some research from the net, and I just found out some rough figures that India has about 0.43 billion acres habitable land, that is taking away your forests and your farms and your lakes and ponds and rivers and all of that. And this can host actually 3.44 billion people. How did I get that? You just multiply 8 by 0.43. So now, of course, we are at half this population. And another figure, which I'm not too sure, but it says that Earth is having about 15.77 billion acres of land, minus the sea. This is, we're talking of land. So leave away all your Arctic, Antarctic, and sea and rivers. So from that, you minus the forest and the desert, and you have 15.77, which actually points to 126 billion. I'm just putting that figure out for all of you who think and are believing the globalist idea now that 8 billion population is too much on the earth and we need to downsize population. So that's at least 100 times false from from this figure. So maybe it's not 126 billion people, but otherwise I think the earth can, if designed well, can hold about 20 billion people. Now, why did I put this figure? For us just to understand that for a lot of good health principles, which is why I have designed this ground floor only. And the second principle is, if you go to first floor and second floor and third floor, which you really don't need to when you see that there is enough land. Once you go higher, then you need harder building material, and that's where concrete and iron and fabricated things come in. And so many of those things come from non-renewable resources. So we do not need to dig any more holes in the earth. And when you don't do that, this is the model that I'm saying will last us at least for the next 2,500 years, the entire Dwapara Yuga. And at the end of that, of course, it's not the end of the time cycle, but our sciences like this, we've come through a period that's called the Kali Yuga, which is literally manifested a hell that we are living in. And so all of us are innovating at this time to make it better than this. And that's what the New Earth Summit is about. So I guess after 2,500 years, you're going to have another newer Earth Summit maybe, and where the more detailed sciences of living and nutrition, education, that the way you structure society, money, everything is going to emerge. So uh, let us just look at this in a simple schematic form. So that's what is so important, because the current models that are designing are still taking out things from the earth, and things like coal that we're already running out of, things that like metal which we're already running out of. So those are definitely not sustainable models, and they don't have a life of more than 25 years. So what is this amazing model? It starts with whether you get 5 by 5 kilometers, or you get 7 by 4, or you get 6 by 5. If it's rectangular, square, oval, doesn't really matter so much. Whatever land you get, you can work with that. And some of the things here, that blue line is perhaps on one end of the property you have a river running uh, from you know north to south or east to west. And next to that, this green patch is probably by nature itself, that a lot of trees will go there. So maybe there's a kind of a forest next to that. And because of the proximity of water, you may start farming a certain belt over there, or make a food forest, which is also where we get a lot of fruits. And next to that, because you have close to the water source, you may now, for example, down there's another blue patch, maybe a lake. So you take advantage of that and you start growing a food forest or a farm over there. Next to that, this round blue circle is a community market. So where you get fresh food on a daily basis. Then again on the top, maybe those are farms where you're farming a lot of vegetables. Next to that, you're going to have again an organic market that will get you produce from the food forest, the organic market. Maybe next to that, you have a farm where you're having cattle, and the system that I've designed is cattle is only used, cows are used for manure, not for killing them and eating them. If you have understood in the previous sessions that we did, that the human beings can be the healthiest on just plant-based foods. There's a deep science to it, and those who have not understood that science, they take a shortcut to eat meats. Basically, those meats are also made by plants. Okay, so animals eat the plants, and that's how they get nutrition. And our nutritional sciences on the planet have gone so bad, and we have made so many mistakes and become nutritionally deficient, mainly with the way we grow plants on soils that are not mineralized well. So we have nutritional deficiencies. And then people, nutritionists, get the idea that, oh, only if you eat meat, you will get that nutritional, that deficiency will be filled up. But that is not the deep science. The deep science is that when you grow a good range of nutrition on well mineralized soils, the human body is designed to completely sustain and thrive on plant-based foods. So that's just about the friendly animals who will create manure for them, whether it's goats also, that's fine. Now on this left hand side, what you see is certain industries or natural industries of this community, where you make, for example, maybe one of them is a garment making block, where you are probably growing your own cotton or growing your own hemp, and you are making your own fabric. So that could be a garment factory, it could be the wooden, chairs and tables factory, and the third could be something of all the so many household utensils that are made of wood. Now, in previous designs, I have shown that most of the things that human beings use, if they are living a natural life in a comfortable home that is made of natural materials, most of the things, your house building housing materials will be made of stone, mud that's available locally, and then lime and other natural binders. So these are these industries that are probably cutting wood and all of that. If you grow enough wood, more than what you are consuming in your community, then wood and trees become a renewable asset. So likewise, on the other side of the community and all the corners, you may be having different types of industries. So maybe some other products and services are being manufactured in these other spaces. Now, right in the center is the community hall, or you can call it the spiritual center, where people just commune. You see, and they may have their own spiritual practices or religions or spiritual masters, which they can always, practice in their own homes. But this is a place that has for universal, people to meet and share love, brotherhood, and self-empowerment sciences. So it's a very high energy place. And that's the reason it's in the middle of the center, because that energy moves out into all directions. So around that, there will be certain utility blocks or areas where maybe it is a shopping center or education center or research center or some special type of focused manufacturing center. So you have different aspects, functional aspects of the community, and these are the blocks where people get work. And besides these blocks, also people are getting their jobs and their work in the other peripheral blocks also. So it's a community that works together to create the food, the products, services that the entire community needs. Now, uh, where are the people going to stay? So on the left hand side, for example, we will be having those houses. So the people who will be working in those pink sectors, they could stay probably more close to their place of work. So that means when they walk out from their house, it's not more than a 5-7 minute walk, a maximum 10-minute walk. So similarly, you have housing that is dispersed everywhere in between, where these wonderful teams, the people who are associated with that sector of work, they are staying on that side. So you have people next to people who are working with the cattle, they will stay more to the cattle. People who are running the community market will stay more there. And people who are working on the farm, they will stay more near the farm. And then, of course, in between as well. So housing is dispersed all in between. And this makes people having very short access. If you see some block, it'll be so close to the spiritual center, to the university, or to the farm, um, and yes, people even on the downside working here. So this is that entire spread out of this 6,177 acres. And the shape may change depending on the land that you actually get or you measure out. And it depends on your water body. So you would have to align with that. Now, if you don't have a lake or a pond, then you need to, have groundwater. So you need to do groundwater harvest, this rainwater harvesting, so that it gets in the ground, and then you can have wells that will last you for the whole year. So this is the overall, spread, and with some very fundamental principles how that community can work. Now, whether you do it in a greenfield project, that means like this on bare land and you design everything from scratch, or you are looking at a village or a city where which is a brownfield project, meaning there are already people staying over there. So what do you do with that place? You bring in certain principles that are green and natural. For example, the first thing you need to do is bring down the amount of processed foods, and you can bring that down if in the adjoining area somewhere you can grow food. So have more a lower consumption of processed foods, a higher consumption of fresh food from organic markets. And likewise, whatever can be done, to create more wellness centers that are distributed, more working spaces in between. There are so many innovations. And finally, in a very congested space like this, you will have to do certain things that make buildings more green. And probably in the next presentation, we will have a look at some of those ideas for existing cities of how they can be made more greener. But we have to understand this, that this, as I presented earlier, this kind of model has done a lot of damage to the planet. So we have to be clear that we should not keep on repeating this mistake again. And who are going to, take care of all of these developments? So whether it's in your, your city or your state, at least every state needs to have this committee. And all of these committees, and there may be more to this, these are all committees that work on natural principles and on, renewable resources. So at your state level, you will have to have committees like this, and people have already started forming these committees. Like in Goa, I have already started, you know, uh, getting people into these committees, and these committees will take care of all the three areas, because in your state you may have all the three sections. You may have greenfield, you may have brownfield, like as in a village, and then you may have a concrete jungle also. And these committees need to understand the entire perspective, that the long term sustainability and non renewable resource, not extracting them, is actually in the greenfield projects. So that it has to be given. Current greenfield sites, they need to be reserved and blocked for that ground floor natural living. That's the first thing you need to do. The second thing, with the concrete jungles, people need to understand that they need to put a freeze. This committee needs to understand they need to put a freeze on the construction that is going there. And whatever sanctions have been given for buildings, that is fine, but they should not do more of that. Uh, and the land in between, which is villages that already have some constructions, how do you make it greener? Now, I'm just running through this once again. Why these spaces are such a dangerous, everyday threat to the planet, is because to feed these people and supply them daily water, this necessary evil that has happened over the whole century of creating dams to get the water to fill all these high density cities. These dams have been choking up the water that has of the rivers that have been going downstream, and because that water gets choked up downstream, the earlier civilizations who live there, they don't get enough water, and their food growing and their local industries all start drying up, and it becomes a barren land. And then those people, of course, they are living, they want to produce kids, they want to eat food, so they leave all these places and they start migrating to those cities. And so that's why all of our metro cities have become so congested and so sickening. And there's too much of traffic, too much of pollution, and too much of stress. So, what needs to happen is, at the same time, as we are designing this entire system, we have to start releasing water from the dams, or whatever it is, 10%, 10%, 10% over a period of time, and whether you go up to 50% of release also, because as that water starts coming down the river, then you can start greenfield projects, like all those villages that have dried up. You can revive all those villages, because the second thing that is happening here is you're decongesting the city, and you are bringing back populations and spreading them out on the land, and creating good, low population density as per this model that I have designed. So that's when, again, when people live locally, they have instant access to food on a daily basis as per what I've designed in the community. Or even if not that community, then at least in your existing villages, they can expand a little more and take more people without increasing the population density of more than eight people per 500 square meter home. And then you have the scoop of going back to fresh foods, because you have land and you can grow, and you can get out of eating all of these processed, chemically toxic foods that are killing you slowly. Then also you can get back to growing your own herbs and having natural medicine, and reject this entire artificial medicine system. And again, once you have your tree economy, you can build all your homes, your products, and the list is endless for you to live a natural life that does not use any more non-renewable resources. So I've shared earlier all of these, there are just 4 trees, and each one of them you can make over 100 products. So we know there are hundreds of trees, and the list is endless of what you can do and be self-sufficient in your community. So as you do this, all of these global problems, they start reversing. You grow enough trees so that, and you make from that, so you don't need to cut down forests. So yeah, so we don't, so all of these problems are going to reverse. That means we do not need to cut down any more trees. We do not need to make drill more holes in the sea to get crude oil. We do not need to do more mining and make holes in the earth, and we don't need to excavate sand for all our glasses and bottles and all of that. So the plunder of the earth can stop in this way, and every passing day we can work towards. And that's how these kind of manifestations will come lower and lower if we make these green places where we are getting all our products and services. So this is the hope that all of this unnecessary travel, transport, packaging, cargo, and just traveling to work, which can happen in 10-15 minutes of walking, we make all of these trains and metros. And this is really, destroying the earth. All of this heat also that's causing the melting of the glaciers, resulting in flooding. All of that heat will come down from all of these machines, and this flooding and natural disasters will all start coming down. And this is the model. As we start developing it, rolling out in more places, it will solve all these problems. Once you do enough rainwater harvesting, have your local water body, you do not you won't have a water problem. When people are employed, you won't have a poverty problem. When there is complete knowledge in your community, you will have quality education. So all these problems that are at the global scale will automatically start getting reversed when you start implementing this kind of natural living community. And of course, the people who are going to do this are not your officials and your current, people who have manifested the mess. So you need to have people who think organically, naturally, and who can have the right ideas, like what we're talking here on the summit and on many other conferences and summits that are natural and green and looking at local self-sufficient communities. And these are the people who are going to take it forward, and that's the people who should be in the list of all of these committees that I talked about. And you can design whatever shape and size of community that you want. Larger rollout of this, I think Chandra Vikash ji will talk about, and I'll leave that to him. How this can spread across the country and across the nation.
Thank you so much, Darryl, for sharing with us that beautiful vision. I'll now direct the same question to Chandra Vikash ji. If you could please elaborate further on the topic and present your perspectives.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is to further expand on one scenario that Darryl presents of how we can create eco communities, and he also goes into the details of how many people and the dimensions and how it will start repairing and healing the damage that we have done in the process of creating better lives for everyone, livable, equitable, and sustainable. I would like to take a broader approach for various reasons. One of them is the fact of globalization. However hard we try to tell ourselves that we are free to do certain things at the local levels. In terms of creating communities which are self-sustained. Somehow when we go beyond a particular scale, when we become noticeable, we realize that it may not happen to all the eco communities, but many of them have been at the receiving end of the global intrusion in terms of the globalist land grab So in that regard, I would like to focus also on the need to get a handle at the global governance level. So I'll start from the other end in terms of where we are and what do we envision to be, a new kind of truly democratic and representative world body, which has become possible for two distinct reasons. One of them is the fact that the present setup, which is with the United Nations at its forefront, of which we have various wings. We have the General Assembly, we have the Security Council, we have the WHO, we have the UNDP, we have the Economic and Social Council. So it has various wings, but there doesn't seem to be much method into uh, into the madness that has been we've been witnessing because the UN has failed its charter. So as you get the message that many people are on audio, so I'll quickly walk through the slides and then come to the more interactive session. So even after 75 years and deep into the spectre of bioterrorism, which even in a deeper way is bio psycho spiritual warfare, we need an alternative structure, just like the League of Nations had to make way for the United Nations in 1945 after it failed its charter and the Second World War happened. So similarly, with the spate of genocides, so much of loss of human lives, compromising our freedom, our dignity in every part of the world, today. There is a big question mark on the credibility, as well as there are charges of the United Nations being, collusive in crimes against humanity. So that's the first part. The second part is that with the communication infrastructure, the global information highways that are available today, whether we like it or not, and even when we are aware of its darker side, of the impact on economic electromagnetic fog, we can only we have no other option but to use it to rewind and to kind of or rather unwind to the kind of healing and restoration of ecology that we would like to have. So that's the kind of trade-offs that we need to make, that while we are keenly aware that we need to dismantle much of this very toxic and hazardous infrastructure, which includes the communication networks, but we have to find our way. The pathways have to be created by using these technologies not for subversive purposes as they are being done today, but for more constructive and restorative purposes. So that's very tricky as to we need to draw a fine line, keep a fine balance, that while we need to contain the damages, we also need to use it to create the alternative parallel structures at the global level. The third point is that a big question mark is there that while the United Nations, pays lots of lip service to individual freedom and human dignity, the world order is very territorial. You have vast tracts of land. So the vast tracts of land that are occupied by countries with population density of just for example, Canada is just about maybe 3 to 4 people persons per square kilometer. America, the United States of America, for example, is around about 13 to 14 people per square kilometer. And then we have, vast areas in Asia where, there is the population is very dense. Now, where it may, for example, India is presently at around 440 people per square kilometer. Even though the 2021 census census is delayed because of the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns. So we are envisaging with all our good intent and with all our commitment to get rid of the menace that endangers not just our present well-being, but also casts a dark shadow on the future for our children and for the generations to come. And like the indigenous belief says that we didn't inherit the planet from our forefathers, we borrow it from our children. So so the situation has become so urgent and so pressing that we must very quickly. So I'll just explain to you what exactly we mean by the supreme structure. So at the center we have what we're calling as the Gaia Earth Sansad. So Sansad means parliament. We are using a more indigenous term. Gaia is, a very is a Greek word for goddess and Mother Earth. In the Vedic wisdom, there is a mantra called Gavo Vishwashva Matra, which also means Mother Earth. So Gaia, the word, is a very beautiful confluence of the two classical civilizations, the Greek civilization and the Indic civilization. Earth is, as we well know, as we call our planet. So Gaia Earth Sansad is the truly democratic and representative world body, which initially we create through selection, through a open and transparent global discourse. And in due course, as we have the election mechanism in place, we have worldwide elections for the various positions and various ministries that are created at the global level. Now, in the next stage, we have 13 regions. So like I said, we are moving away from the territorial world order to a more people-oriented world order. So unlike the present classification of regions, which is based on continent, we are creating regions which have each about 600 million population, which adds up to 7.8 billion for covering the entire globe. So 13 regions with 600 million people each. Then we have the next level, which is the sub-region, which we are calling as community of nation states. So the beauty of this arrangement is that we are creating a dovetailing with the current nation states structure. So in which, there are countries like Vatican City with a population of just about 800 people. At the same time, there are countries like China and India with populations nearly about 1.4 billion people, and all of them have one vote in the present General Assembly. Then we have a very skewed and a very bizarre setup called the Security Council, which is represented by the aggressors of the Second World War. Now this is completely in against the grain, the letter and spirit of the UN Charter, which wants to establish global peace, which wants to respect global individual freedom and dignity. And how can when we should actually have debarred the aggressors of the Second World War from occupying any position of power and influence for at least the next 50 years. But instead, we gave them not only seats in the Security Council, we also gave them veto power. Now, this has been questioned not just since the last 76 years of the existence of United Nations, but right from the time its predecessor, the League of Nations, was formed. For example, in that period, there was a statement by Charles de Gaulle, one of the leading statesmen of that era, to say that politics is too serious an affair to be left to politicians. And he indicated the demagogues, the populistic leaders of the nation states. So everyone suggested, was of the opinion that it should not be a club of nation states. Rather, the global world, the global body should be directly represented by the people of the world. It should be, where it should be the truly sovereign. And that's my other point, on which I'll come to. The other point that I'm making is that, so accordingly, what we do in the CNS is that we club together countries with population of less than 100 million. So it may be 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, depending on the cluster that adds up to 100 million. In case of countries with population greater than 100 million, what we do is that we create a cluster of provinces. In the case of even denser areas, we create as cluster of districts. Now, unfortunately, in case of India, for example, and because of the COVID lockdown, we are not getting the level of granularity of updated population data for district and province level for worldwide. So we need to think of ways on how to overcome this obstacle. Then in January, we are calling a meeting of representatives from the 78 CNS, each with a population of 100 million. Then we have the eco-anarchy, or what we are calling as the community state. And then I'll show in the next section further drill down of how we create eco-communities, self-sustained eco-communities as each of these community states. So with a population of 2 million, each of these, so there are about 3,900 community states all over the world. So if you take the case of India, then we have a population round about 1.4 billion, and we have nearly about 700 districts. So every district in India would roundabout be a community state in the global scenario. So 700 in India, similarly maybe 700 plus something in China, and similarly. So this will be the what we are calling as the supreme. So this will be, they will together form the Gaia Sansad. So it's called Sovereign Union of People's Republics and Eco-Anarchies of Mother Earth. And we are proposing that because we are sitting in an emergency response, just as I'm presenting to you, Tedros, the WHO head, has announced that there is going to be a World Health Assembly in coming week or so, in which they are going to take away the sovereignty of all the nation states. So all the hard-fought battles that each of the nation states had for their freedom from colonialism is going to be surrendered under the guise of a pandemic on which there is no consistency, there is no sincerity and honesty, and certainly there are very truthful allegations, increasingly seemingly true, of crimes against humanity that are being committed by the United Nations and the WHO. So this makes the scenario, the world scene, very urgent and pressing, that not just few organizations which have come together, for example, Earth Keepers Unit, Earth Keepers Connect, and Gaia and Work and PYP, but we need to reach out to each and every corner of the world using the global media channels, and each one of the participants would have a responsibility to reach out to maximum people, because looking at the unfolding pan-drama, if we don't do it, our chances of survival are increasingly dim, and a dark envelope will surround us very soon, because there will be, according to what the whistleblower of Pfizer, Mike Eden, has already shared, that by March 2022, there is going to be a complete totalitarian regime which will be controlled globally. So the nation states will anyway be surrendering their sovereignty. So we must show that urgency to respond to this very critical situation, which not only threatens our sovereignty, but our very survival. So I'll just now move on to the details of what exactly are the next steps that we need to take.
Chandra Vikas ji,
Yeah.
yeah, can I just share a few of your slides from your presentation which you showed yesterday, and just
Yeah.
make a connection between the model where I left off and what you are doing in cities? Can I just show that? Then I will come
You're
to this
most
slide.
welcome, Darryl. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this is the very smart design of, and especially for the brownfield areas. That is when you are not having, this the greenfield project in the existing places, whether it's in your existing villages or in the cities. Very innovative designs in the Lace Gaya model of Chandra Vikash ji are like this, of reducing the amount of roads and converting them into places where people can grow food in your village or in your city. So creating more greenery, more health, and using these systems of cycling and pollution-free kind of vehicles. So these are all the innovations that can be done in existing spaces. So it's moving from that car culture of consumerism and so much of using up of non-renewable resources on the planet to more of non-polluting and not so demanding resource intensive ways of living. And cycling tracks, as you all are seeing, this is also what has been incorporated in my model. And then, of course, all the different efforts that we make towards zero to landfill. That's also an aspect. First, of course, aspect of a community is to reduce the amount of waste. That is first. And once when you have the waste, then your options of recycling, upcycling, or downcycling. And also, yeah, so this is upcycling, where people from waste, they are making something better, waste to wealth. And similarly, like this, what I had now in this diagram, you can see the different blocks in India. And this is what I was sharing earlier in my presentation. You will have a village within a city, within a state, and surely within that state you will come across all these three areas: a greenfield zone, a zone where your village has already been partly developed, and a zone where you have a concrete jungle. So when it is taken up by the state committees, they have to work on all these three things at the same time. So that is slowly creating a natural migration of people into greenfield, slowly creating more green space in your urban areas, and in the concrete jungle, slowly making that more green, but phasing that out, because we have already seen that whether you phase it out over 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, that all depends on the local place and how well the committee is going to do it. But they need to know that they have to move to a very green design. And this Chandra Vikas ji, if you could also share about this.
The lace model now, in which what we do is that we build further granularity. For example, it's my clear belief that people will only get convinced to give up the current kind of comfort zone only if we show them not a lower comfort zone but a higher comfort zone. So yeah, that's my understanding, and that is why we have built a very elaborate model. Now the first, it's a 5 vertical, 4 horizontal, and you see there is a hybrid. So the 5 verticals are firstly to cater to food abundance. One of the beliefs in the indigenous wisdom is that anna bahulya, food abundance, can only lead to sattvic mahasatta. So if you want spiritual world order in which there is fairness and justice, then food abundance is the prerequisite for that. So like Darryl explained that lots of food can be grown locally, what we do here very intelligently is that we create spaces. And how do we create spaces is by creating interlinkages between other verticals, as I'll come to. So food abundance is about growing food locally, creating food forests, and firstly creating space as well as time, as well as aspirations for people not to work for multinationals or for the government far-flung areas, but actually to give priority to working for their community and take lots of pride and dignity in it. So there's a healthy competition between the quality of life of one eco community with its neighborhood communities, as well as there's a global benchmark by which we bring out a ranking of which are the communities which are doing best and what the best practices can be transferred from one to another. The next is stack is water abundance. In this, we specify that like any other resource, water must be collected locally. So only when you exhaustively use all the rainwater that falls under on your geographical area without having any evaporative losses or without having any contamination, without creating any black water or gray water which is contaminated, toxic or hazardous. So with this mandate, only when there is a net water requirement, it can bring water from outside. And at a very metered rate, which will have to be paid for by the community from wherever it's bringing that water. So with this kind of new mandate, new protocol, we not only get water abundance in particular cities, because we also witnessing that there's going to be greater precipitation as with the global warming, as the temperature rises. So we must take advantage of this phenomena and make sure that before desertification sets in, as the temperature goes further higher above what's called the wet bulb temperatures, we must make use of the next 10 years and create more space for water. There is interestingly a very famous meme by Bruce Lee. It's called Be Water. Because water is very flexible, and we are facing problems on one hand of drought and desertification, as well as our cities are so poorly designed that even few millimeters of rainfall causes waterlogging. That's simply because we are not giving space to water. So that's the second vertical. The third vertical is, as Darryl shared, zero to landfill, waste to wealth. So we turn every waste, everything that's not required in the household, we stipulate that nothing should be mixed up so that nothing needs to be segregated. So if it's vegetable peels, wet waste from the kitchen, which is organic and biodegradable, it must go straight to the composting yard. If it's plastic, if it's used cloth, if it's paper, if it's wood, it's metal, they should all in a very intricate supply chain or a supply constellation. They should go to specific cottage units, which will use them as raw materials or what is called as technical nutrients. So by this, we create circular economies in every neighborhood, along with localized abundance, along with we create localized livelihoods. And we also compress the footprints. So people don't need to move further than 5 kilometers to search for their livelihoods. So with this very neat and very elegant arrangement, we not only ensure that every neighborhood becomes zero to landfill, but also that using the waste as raw material, what is also called as urban mining. So one of the big data inference is that today geological extraction has become much more costlier for several commodities than mining it from within the urban space where they were first brought in, but somehow they are lying idle or lying in some disuse. So that's the third vertical. Similarly, we have the fourth vertical, which incidentally creates space and time for the other three. So which is what this people and eco-friendly transportation system. In this, our mantra is again a very deep dive investigation into the root cause of the problems, the root cause of much of the urban problem. And if we add brick by brick and inch by inch of global problems, motor cars and the automobile dependent land use, not just the direct use of the motor cars, but the way they are put to use in mass ownership was never, the design of the planners and thinkers and the, the people, the engineers. It is just a freak coincidence of history that the automobile companies, completely manipulated the city, planning, and they created this suburbia and sprawl and what is called as the ecumenopolis. So in that, what we specify is that rather than cycling tracks, we should have motoring tracks. So as Darryl explained in the previous slide, as you can see those, the line between the home zones. In this, as you can see, there's a motorway, which is the arrow mark. So this is like the network of rail transport. We have a network of arterial road, which is seamless. At the same time, in an excellent trade-off, which is a win-win, we create, seamless movement for motor vehicles so that they don't get stuck and in a stop and go, events at the traffic signal or at pedestrian crossing. At the same time, what you see as a bridge between these two red planks is a ramp-based, with a gradient by which you can not only take your bicycle, not only you can walk across from one zone to another, you can also take the, bicycle without getting down, or even the wheelchair. So that's the kind of gradient that is designed. So now you get a crisscross, cycling friendly and walking friendly track from, across the city, across the region. This also leads to zero accidents. The maximum number of deaths, one of the big causes is road accidents, not air accident or any other, in the marine sector. So we address this by creating a complete grade separation of the motorways with the movement tracks of people on foot or on bicycle or on wheelchair, or even like you see in the picture of the neighborhood electric vehicles, which are ultra light, silent, and also they're not creating any direct pollution. Though these are electric vehicles, so we also ensure that there are roadside solar panel charging. So we also make sure that the electricity for charging doesn't come from a thermal or a hydel or a nuclear power plant, but from whatever minimal solar and windmills that we suggest for every neighborhood. So now the next vertical we have, which is a suggestion from our partner work, is that there are number of housing units that are already built up, but they're not gainfully utilized. For example, as the atomization of the joint family has been happening, so every generation has been purchasing their apartments, and even single households have been purchasing multiple housing units for investment purposes. So we stipulate through the global mandate that you cannot use a housing unit for an investment purpose. You can either stay in it, or you have to run a lodge or a guest house, or a it has to have high occupancy. By doing this, we not only provide everyone with people and eco-friendly housing, we also ensure that there is no further encroachment on farmland or on forest land. So there is a domino effect that as the city population expands its footprint, so it starts encroaching the nearby, the agricultural land. So the plotting happens because the farmers find it more lucrative to sell off to the builders and the government nexus, the politician builder nexus, than grow vegetables and fruits which do not get them, good price. So we stop this kind of vicious cycle, and we not only ensure that everyone gets good housing, but we also ensure that there is no longer deforestation. Rather, we start, creating food forests from the heart of the city. We're creating a lung space because one of the interesting findings that we have over several years of research is that it's the avant-garde. It's people, it's sections of people who are highly educated are the ones who are also, waking up to the grim reality that, for healthy habitats, we need, walk in the woods, as you will see in lots of, apartment society advertisements also. So lots of space is being reserved for, localized forests. Gradually, we will, as we are waking up to sanity and to senses, we will realize that flora and fauna needs more space, and that is for our overall well-being. Then we have the horizontal layers in which we are addressing communal, caste, creed, ethnic, and gender harmony. Now, humans are intelligent beings, they're also social beings. But when we get into resource crunch situations, when there's a lack of abundance, when there is economics, which, in Hindi, I call it Anarth Shastra rather than Arth Shastra, then lots of, tribal and internecine battles start happening. And this is how the colonialists created the divide and rule. So if we want peace and harmony, so that all our energies are channelized to, peace and ecological restoration and protection of flora and fauna, and for prosperity, and not just for us, for successive generations, we must ensure that for communal, caste, creed, ethnic, and gender harmony, the spiritual and cultural revolution that we are talking about, music and dance and literature and poetry will play a more prominent role, and we will be able to create more space and more time for such live events which will engage us, rather than the kind of tension and stress that is filling up our lives and creating diseases and disasters. So next is what already we had ample deliberation on holistic health, how we need to give up the allopathy, which is a very kind of instant gratification mode. It only treats the symptoms. We need to come to a more preventive side. So doctors need to be trained to become, not take charge from when the people get sick, but doctors should be paid on a subscription model for keeping people healthy, and they must be they must take the responsibility. They must bear the cost whenever somebody in their custody falls sick. So they become the stewards and custodians for our health, rather than wait for disease and pandemics to happen. Similarly, we had a session on holistic education where we are talking about lots of indigenous knowledge, lots of knowledge that is stored in our dialects that are getting lost. So when we start using monolithic languages like just English or Hindi or Spanish or Portuguese, lots of wisdom that is there at the local level gets lost. So both the local knowledge as well as the cosmopolitan perspectives of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, of Gaia, is getting lost. So both need to be restored and brought into our curriculum with new pedagogical methods, more innovation, where learning by road moves to more creative learning, and as we say, a million flowers bloom to the best of their potential. Similarly, we have a holistic energy perspective in which we talk about that how can we minimize our dependency on 24/7 electricity, which today mostly comes from coal or fossil fuels or from nuclear or from big hydel, which are choking our rivers. So in that perspective, can we kind of through meditation, through yoga and asana, pranayam and such practices in various other cultures, can we create a holistic energy perspective by which every person, every household, every community becomes a net energy giver? So for example, through our human power, through cycling, through our pedaling, can we run our washing machines? can we generate some amount of power rather than spinning in a gym, which is powered by electricity? Can we become net energy producers rather than energy suckers and energy guzzlers? So that's the capacity that this beautiful creation has given to human species. But we have not discovered our potential, our true identities, and this is the way to glory and to establish dignity and freedom. The last, as you say, the supportive mechanism of art, culture, religion, science, and spirituality, start flourishing, and the boat starts sailing to safer harbor and to newer horizons. The hybrid model that we have in this transition period is that we must take care of the last person standing. What is called as Antyodaya in the Bharatiya Sanskritic idiom. So we create the disaster and emergency response, and our partner organization work has been specializing in this respect. They have lakhs of volunteers across India and across the world who worked with patients, COVID patients in households where during the lockdown no food was reaching. And already in one of the sessions we had Alama Sayyid Abdullah Tariq ji and Mahatma Saurabh Sarkar ji, Mahacharya Saurabh Sarkar ji sharing on that. So Darryl, with that I complete my presentation on how with the Lace Gaia model we can look forward to a completely beautiful, bold, brave new world. So just the last two slides, these are about the 13 regions that you can see. I could share the presentation later on. And then in the last slide, you can just see that we have just rejigged the world order, the neo-colonialist world order, which is on territory control, to a more people-oriented world order where each region has a same number of people of about 600 million each. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chandra Vikash ji, for sharing with us your wonderful design.
So yes, there's a question from Mayank Pincha. He asks, where is the first prototype happening? Chandra Vikash ji, would you like to?
Yeah. Right. So I could show you some few slides. We had a global pilot launch in the month of September last week in Rampur, which is in Muradabad region. It's in Uttar Pradesh. So we've already done a town hall meeting, and we're already sensitizing the volunteers. We are working on capacity building to implement Lace Gaia model there. But as you can see that, for example, we are questioning some of the very well entrenched, beliefs regarding, for example, car ownership. So people today believe that, private car ownership is almost like their birthright, whereas we are challenging that. And this is not the first time we are doing that. This has been done right from the advent of the automobile. But just like we see the big pharma hiding the truth on the actual damage that the pharma industry is doing, or what they are calling as vaccine are actually bioweapons. Similarly, I call cars as weapons of mass destruction. So I can tell you that I have fought, huge battles, even when I was with a large corporate like Tata Consultancy Services with me, sitting in, heavy industries ministry office. The Society for Indian Automobile Manufacturers was paying bribes to get it, into the policy documents that investments in automobile sector have a certain multiplier. I was showing that I can give you better multipliers if you stop selling car ownership to individuals and instead, like what is Uber and Ola today. I had this vision almost about 15 years back. And that is when I made my first international presentation at the Intelligent Transportation System World Congress in Japan in the year 2004. So it's almost about 17 years by now. In the year 2005, most of this was incorporated in the National Urban Transport Policy that the Government of India, Ministry of Urban Development had released. But as as I like to keep reiterating, COVID is a blessing in disguise, because finally it has woken us out of our deep slumber that automobiles are the weapons of mass destruction. Automobiles are what are called as car bombs. And I would like to share a small story about how we are missing. For example, George Bush destroyed Iraq searching for weapons of mass destruction, and he found none. There's a small story of Mullah Nasiruddin, where he loses his house keys, and he is searching it under a lamppost. So he's frantically searching it under lamppost. So while a passerby goes one direction, and even while coming back after half an hour, he still sees that Mullah Nasiruddin has not found his house keys. So he asks him that, Mullah, did you lose the house keys under the lamppost? He says, no, I actually lost it somewhere in the bush, but because it's dark there, I am not finding it there, because there is a light under the lamppost. I am trying to find it here. Now, this may seem very silly, this may seem very whimsical and frivolous, but most of us, what we call as the zombie class, is busy finding solutions where where the problems are not. So my point is that rather than moving, motor cars all over the place, ramps built to the house, what Lace Gaia model challenges, and that is why you will not see the first pilot in a very elaborate, comprehensive way, unless we get a handle on the world body, unless we are able to move right from there, that there should be at least a 50-year moratorium on automobile production, and all the automobile units should be turned into what has started as a trend as scrapping and recycling and upcycling units, and into cycling manufacture as well as cycling ecosystems. So the big challenge, Mayank, you have a very genuine question, but the ground realities are such that because of the the vice grip that the global capitalist system has, it is not just big pharma, it is also the big automobile, it's also the the big real estate. We are in clutches of these capitalists, and unless we work simultaneously on a grassroots to global governance system and structure, we are not able to, despite our valiant efforts, not just for me, but for thousands of other people, you will not see a full-blown implementation of Lois model without the Gaia complement of it.
Thank you, Chandra Vikash ji. We have another question from...
Yes, I would just like to take that up. There's on two questions. So one is from Anthony Vaz, and he asks how far apart are the homes from one another in the eco village. So just showing that lovely picture again. Each of these homes, like I explained earlier, it's about a 180 or 200 square meter 4-bedroom ground floor villa, and around it there is still more land. So it's if you can just take kind of a circle, if you can take that 500 square meters as a circle, so probably you will see that just like your from your home to the next home, it is going to be somewhere like I think less than 100 meters. So that's something like what is there in a village. To just walk to your next door neighbor, you will just take about 2 minutes. So that is how far the homes are between each other. And actually, to host about 50,000 people in this entire 6,177 acres, you need about 6,000 homes. So as you can see in this diagram, some of them, there will be clusters of homes where in one area, and then there'll be a little distance. Maybe you need to walk 10 minutes in another direction, and then you come to another cluster of 100 homes, and then you come to another cluster of 100 homes. So this will actually turn out to be, quite interesting with people knowing that, that's the farmers, zone, and that's the, certain goods producer zone. And I think the community will kind of, slowly evolve in that way, um, uh, kind of knowing in which zone, north, south, east, west, are all the certain types of people linked to their profession. The next, yeah, about the prototype. Yes, for the eco village, we are looking at first starting it in Goa itself, and we are already looking at the land, the prototype for this. We've already seen 2, 3 lands of 1,000 acres, and as soon as the New Earth Summit is, concluding, we already have a team who had been working on it, and we will take it forward in the first week of December. So anybody who is from Goa, definitely get in touch with me, and you can be part of our team, bring in your ideas, and contribute to making this design, even more detailed and more functional for all of us.
Yeah, then just to add to that, one of the traditional indigenous principles has been that how traditional houses are designed for 100 years, which is about 4 generations. Today we have a very chaotic situation where every generation is kind of creating new housing units, and effectively those houses are coming on either agricultural land, pasture land, or on forests. So we need to bring in this sanctity that houses using traditional materials can have a lifespan of about 100 years, unlike today's modern buildings of concrete and steel, which are only about 50 years.
Yes, yes. So that is, wonderfully already incorporated in so many, natural building structures, especially even my house in Goa is, one section of the house is probably 200 years old. In the home, I have furniture of teak wood, and the screws are not even metal. They are wooden screws made in a perfectly way. So that type of carpentry of locking wood, and then it's on its own, and it just needs something, 1, 2 pins in place. All of those sciences are there with our villagers. So that's the brilliant thing. Natural materials can make you, homes that will last for 200 years. And then you also see the advantage, even if you of a ground floor house, even if you have an earthquake in the area, it's more likely to topple a 2, 3 story home than a ground floor home. So that's one more advantage of it. So definitely yes, uh, people when they use their local materials, for example, in the natural homes and architecture session that we had, that is what one of our natural architects told us, that the basic excavation of the foundation for making your home itself becomes the building material that you use. So from your same area, instead of, because modern design, they think they're so scientific, they excavate the entire thing, they'll load it in trucks, then they'll go and dump it somewhere, create another problem. So that was such a beautiful design, that you will get stones, you will get mud from the place that you're excavating, use that to make your house as far as possible. So yes, in all the villages across not only India but other countries, before that generation dies off, we have to go and start learning from them how to build the homes that they used to build, that stood for hundreds of years.
Yeah. There is the other that in the traditional village structure, for example, if it's a farmer's house, so it will have space for grain storage or for winnowing and for drying up of some of the wet stuff. Similarly, if it's a potter's house, it will have a work studio for pottery, for the furnace, for the kiln to and also the transport. So how are all these taken care of in the eco village structure? I mean, just to.
Yes. So, yeah, I was just looking at mobile as well. So, yes, you talked of the grain storage, and what is the other point?
For the potter, it will be a
Yes.
pottery space to store the clay. Then
Yes.
there will be furnace,
Yes.
a work
Yeah. So
studio.
Yes, yes. So all these in my diagram, the pictures that I was showing of different kinds of hubs at the side. So mainly the ones that are around the center point, the spiritual center, the community hall, right? Next to the community hall, there will be community kitchens also at certain places. Next to the the organic markets. So the structures in between are mainly all the institutions, and the ones at the sides are kind of manufacturing units. Now, what's the second principle of having them at the side is because on all of those manufacturing units, you will have some guard, you will have some person who looks after the property and maintains it. So you will have some security on all the sides, and not it's just on the river side that you may have to build a fence if required or not. So all of these manufacturing sites will be at certain places. So even the potter, whatever clay and whatever excavation happens from the entire community, it will go to that section where these natural uh, uh, building materials are made. So that's how we can see it, that all of the work that happens on the land, whatever resources you get from the land, it will go to the respective section in the society. And even for that matter, yes, the grains will probably be stored more to the farm and close to the organic market. So these finer details will all be, decided by our organic growing team, our permaculture team. Uh, yes, what I just presented is just an overall, idea of uh, where all the housings can be and why these things are at the periphery.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from Mayank. Can we start enlisting people who are interested to stay in the eco village? And can we make a list of skill sets, expertise that initial set of people should have, which will be useful for setting up the eco village?
Yes, ma'am, definitely do connect with me. You have my number, and I will add you to our Eco Village team. It's a Telegram group, the village that we're doing in Goa. So accordingly, when any of our other earthkeeper groups decides to do a village in their place, or a group of people want to do it in a certain place, they have, definitely will make a group of their own. And there are some groups like this across the country. But definitely, I will add you to our Eco Village group, and we will, from first week of December, we'll start doing the work. Hopefully, go to a couple of sites and try to decide on which land we want exactly. Comment from Savita Hebali. She says that revolution needs to start at individual level, waste segregation, create and plant saplings at cell level, individual. Dhanyavad. Yes, Savita, definitely. See, the more people understand, the more they can. The first step is correct certain practices or habits or choices they have made which are contributing to the problem. So that's the first thing, because you can stop it right from today and go for a healthier alternative. So that's why I will encourage the people to watch, all the videos of the New Earth Summit. Now we will start loading them up on our YouTube channel, probably two every day, starting from 1st of December. And I would like everybody to subscribe to it. And as people, they will get it in the order of how we did the webinars. First on wellness of mind, body, spirit, then on food and farming, and then on environment and sustainability. So till that time also, people can definitely watch the videos of the last 2 years of the New Earth Summit. They are on our website, thenewearthsummit.com. And I'm sure as people watch all of this, they will start realizing that at some places they have been part of the problem by doing certain actions, choosing certain products, and doing certain activities. So that is the first thing that people need to stop doing it and take the other better alternative. And then, of course, after that, or even parallelly, is everything that you are suggesting, waste segregation and yes, uh, planting trees and saplings, trying to grow your own food. And I would say some more things like using, biodegradable cleaners at home. That's also one important thing. And also use natural body products, because otherwise chemicals are going in the water into your drainage system. Thank you.
Yeah, Daryl, I have a question regarding that for such eco villages in a sustainable way. See, typically indigenous systems are either patriarchal or matriarchal, and therefore very logical, sound reason is that, let's say, after marriage, does the bride come to the groom's house if it's a joint family, or does the groom go to the bride's house? So in certain matriarchal societies in say in northern Uttarakhand or in northeast or even in Kerala, it's matriarchal, whereas certain are patriarchal, and these are very important for bringing in some kind of structure. Now, otherwise, there's lots of confusion. You start searching for a new housing unit, and that complicates matters. So, how do you settle in your way of doing?
Um, I didn't get it. Could you please repeat that?
See, in indigenous communities,
Yes.
eco villages are either patriarchal or
Oh,
matriarchal.
yes.
So, in a patriarchal joint family, the bride would come to the groom's house,
Yeah.
right? And then there are also things like, if there are many brothers, then the eldest brother will marry. So there are norms that they have. Similarly, in a matriarchal joint family, the groom stays in the bride's house, so
Yes.
that the number of housing units don't need to multiply. So there is a certain stability and structure to
Yes.
the community.
Yes. So I guess in this design where you have about 8 people staying in a house, I think that would kind of limit it where you're not having joint family where there is too much of people coming into the the man's house. So I think that will get worked out naturally. Um, as and it depends on what kind of children are being born in each house. If as long as that is balanced, then we have a balanced migration.
Yeah. No, see, in patriarchal and matriarchal, they are actually finely balanced, including land holdings. So I think that's worth that's worth investigating, especially when we are talking about pride parades and LGBTQ rights. So why not also bring in the practices which were actually important for population balancing and for stability and structure of indigenous communities. That will actually become very important.
Yes, yes,
This
and in this,
atomization of families needs to stop.
yes, and in this, I have this eco village design document for our Goa eco village, and we're fine tuning the principles there. It is actually that the working people of that house, right? Whether it's a single person or it's a man and a wife, or if it's a man and a wife and a child who has grown up. You see, as the dynamic changes, their ownership of that house gets divided. For example, in the eco community, uh, you are given, we do a document where if you pay for that plot, then that is apportioned to you. Okay, it's not sold to you completely, but you can use it for your lifetimes and your next and next generation. So if they're just a husband and wife, then the document will show that this property is apportioned to them. And if they are working people, because otherwise there are dependents who can be younger children who are not yet at the working age and senior citizens who do not work. And so then if there's a third person who starts, getting into the working and contributing to the community, then their name gets incorporated in that plot of land. So there are 3 people who are creating value on which this house is balanced. And for example, another beautiful thing is which will definitely take off the disparity and this thing between the rich and poor. Everybody gets the same value for the work that they do, and time is the currency. So if a cobbler is putting 1 hour, it's equal to a farmer putting 1 hour, it's equal to a lecturer giving anything. We take it that if you have gone to Harvard and educated yourself, that is some intrinsic value you wanted to add to your own personality. It is not because you have to be paid higher or because we should give you more respect in the community. Of course, wiser people always are given automatic respect. But this respect should not be given by the salary that you command because you got a degree from Harvard. So this is a very beautiful system of energy exchange. It's called energy exchange, and that in the presentation that I made on natural assets and trees backed currency, local currency. That was the thing. We make normal clay currency with a special insignia of the community, and any extra work you do that you're not getting a barter for, you can store that in the form of this clay coin. And so money gets generated in the community only when a work is done. It does not get generated just because somebody wants to stamp. Nothing additional is happening in the community. It's assets and it's work at one point, and you cannot have somebody just stamping coins and making, oh, we are richer, the community is richer and richer. No, when you do the work, when you create the products and services, then currency gets generated. So it's a beautiful system where people can come into the community without any money. Then they are living in a house that is paid for by some investor. But when by giving their time, whether it's 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, so 6 hours into a 5 day working period, in that they get their food and they get their stay, all of that in the community. So yes, there are a lot of things, and we welcome more ideas from people of how
Yeah.
to make it more holistic.
Last point, see that you mentioned, a village in Russia, it tried to create a similar, localized currency, and it made lots of news, globally. But ultimately, it was stamped down by the laws of the land, which prohibit you from creating any form of new currency. So I think that's where I keep reiterating that without the Gaia model aspect, standalone eco villages will not get their sustainability or stability or security from the very intrusive and very kind of extortionary globalist world order that we are in. So that's
Yeah.
my concern repeatedly,
Is that?
that yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this the community works on becoming self-sufficient themselves, and creating the goods, products, and services, and bartering it among themselves. So they're pretty self-sufficient in that way. And even if they don't create any clay coin, there could always be a logbook which is signed by the people who they're doing the work for, or that department and that person themselves. So just on a piece of paper, you could say, yeah, I've done 5 hours of community work, and this is by the comparative, by this I can buy, we should be able to get a new pair of shoes or something. So we can do it without any of this clay currency and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Another
Soft
concern
currency.
is that they are going down to the granularity, the new totalitarian protocol that's going to come, that there cannot be a livestock wherever there are people living. Have you come across this? There are guidelines which are going to be more and more state jacketing. For example, you cannot sell your locally cold pressed oil without FSSAI and without the regulatory bodies clearances. So I think they are trying kind of tightening the noose on, because otherwise it looks like a dream run. I would very much like to book my space in your eco village.
Yeah.
And be there and spend rest of my life there. But somehow these jokers are up to some very funny ideas of not letting you be at peace, even if you are doing your best. So that's my concern, on which I'd like to also hear from some of our participants, as in how do they think, how to check these aggressors.
Yes, that's very true that we have these people who are of this current world order blocking all of this. But yeah, right now people are trying through courts and all of that to correct these things. But let's see, for all of the problems, we have to work out certain solutions, whether they are by law or whether they are by, some business deals or agreements and understandings. So let us see how best we can take care or give these people have a exchange with them, because definitely a productive community is going to do many good things in terms of health, in terms of good food and all of that. So perhaps, yeah, we can give them some things that they do not get in their community. Like one aspect of our eco village was wellness tourism. So that is building wellness centers where people from outside can come and get healed. That was a one aspect of the business income, and also simple tourist visits, and also educational trips, because a lot of people are understanding that all of us who are designing these eco village are very deep in natural science, so they really want to come, and that'll be one of our education programs, the complete sciences of how to build this kind of village. And this has literally happened in certain permaculture courses, residential permaculture courses that were for 15 days or 21 days, where the property had a very, basic kind of structure or guest house and all of that, where these workshops happened. And then after that, people were given the practicals to practice on the land in those 21 days. And finally, after that, some of them stayed behind and they became part of that community and they developed the community. So there are so many interesting ways in which we can innovate and we can do good things. But yeah, so we'll have to find solutions for all of these tricks of uh, these jokers, as you're saying. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Darryl. Thank you, Chandra Vikash ji. Okay, so Mayank asks, one of my audiences in my clubhouse room is asking if hemp can be used instead of wood. It can be used for making bricks. Example, aqueduct in Rome lasted for around 1,000 years.
Yes, Mayank, that's very true that one of those things is there listed. Bricks can definitely be made out of hemp. So it depends, as you start growing hemp over there. There are licenses under which, even in the Indian government, if you go as per certain licenses which authorize you to grow that plant for certain products, you can get the license. Hemp is being grown in Himachal for that, and that is more for medicinal purposes, but you can definitely get there are certain criteria that has to be met. And so once you start growing a certain amount of hemp in your area, you would have to blend it with your the different aspects that I presented on one slide. uh, so many products can be done of hemp. Then you have to look at it as what are the more precious uses of hemp in your community if you do not have those bricks. And so you have to look at it like that. And if you do not need, you do not need to make much cloth because out of hemp, and you can use the hemp to make bricks, then definitely you can use the hemp from your community to make bricks.
Okay. I'm just going to ask Ashish's question. Darryl, what are the uses for which you are able to use hemp? Is hemp fumigation, smudging also helpful?
Yes, hemp fumigation is also helpful. It is used as a medicine as well. And so many other uses that I had. Basically, I'll just bring up as I'm talking, I'll bring up one slide. So yes, so you can see a range of textiles and also industrial like rope, canvas. I got a backpack, and I was going to buy shoes also of hemp. So as paper, fabric, food, hemp seeds. I've eaten hemp seeds. I use hemp oil also for like how you have cold pressed coconut oil. There's powder. There's food supplements and building material, natural paint, inks, uh, fireboard, flint, acrylic. Yeah, and bricks are not there, but I know that bricks also can be made, and body care. So yeah, this all depends on your community. What are you lacking in, and Well, on top it says that hemp is known to have over 50,000 different uses. So isn't that really amazing? There are hemp communities online. I'm part of one of them on Facebook. I've not checked the chats over there, I think, for the last 6 or 8 months. But that's where you get, all of this information.
Ashish remarks, thanks a lot. Great slide. Hemp plants grow wild here. So I'm thinking of their uses without getting hounded by authorities. Okay. We have a couple of questions from Mayank. Is it possible for people to be entrepreneurs in such communities? And for having an internal currency, can we become a trust or a body of individuals?
Yes, Mayank, actually, the formation of this body is a trust itself. And so that because trusts are the ones that can hold assets. And in the document that is eco-village design, all of those people who bring in a good amount of money into the trust, at least the minimum, 2 crores and all that for that 500 square meters property. They are all contributors who are living on the land and working there or have put in finance there can become the trust members. So entrepreneurs, yes, in that document, there is also one option that besides the putting in money for your own space, you could put in another lot of money for another additional space. So you have invested in that space. And as that space gets, if it's used as a tourist center or even if it's used as a normal person's home who has not paid for the land, but they are working to for their money and their food and all that. Uh, so uh, the homes, especially that are going to be used for tourists, they will generate income. So there's an income that will also come out from that. So basically, in this community, we will have open understandings and documents that if people are funding some of the manufacturing centers and all of that, so we will take care to see that the documents do take them as an investment and the profits from there will be shared. So in that way, yes, definitely people can be, entrepreneurs, bring in finance for both reasons. So one is to genuinely, give funding to help the community grow faster and come to the place where they are self-sufficient in a faster period of time. And the second thing is, of course, the investment will attract, a return that is comparable so that people would rather invest in the community rather than invest outside. But when making that comparison, of course, when you invest outside, we will compare it to whether you're investing in a toxic industry that is damaging the earth, which sometimes is more profitable because generally over there you're stealing resources that actually do not belong to you. So we look at all those principles and we will definitely give better returns for green users comparatively outside the community.
Thank you, Darryl. Okay, so finally, we're at the end of today's session. A big thank you to the panelists and thank you to our audience for attending. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the same time, but on a new Zoom meeting link for the last day of the New Earth Summit, The Way Forward, which will actually be an open meeting for comments from the summit convener and our panelists, mainly to enable live discussions with you, the audience, so we can get your feedback and ideas as well on how we can take things forward. So please join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. with the Zoom meeting link that I have already shared in the chat box. Namaste and have a lovely evening.